And we are live. Happy first Friday of 2023. Are you used to writing 2023 yet? I'm not. I mean, I've done okay. I haven't messed it up yet, but there's still time to mess it up.
Only been 6 days, Becky.
Yeah, I got plenty of time to mess it up.
That's all right.
Well, how was your holiday, everyone?
It was good. Actually pretty quiet. Just kind of hung out with the family. I don't know if I've talked about it on here, but my brother actually lives in Israel, so he wasn't able to come home for the holidays, and my sister spent the holidays with her boyfriend's family in England. So I was the only one stateside. So I was a spoiled only child. And my mom and I just did a lot of puzzles and hung out.
Yeah. Well, since this is the first one of the year, I guess I should backtrack and say, hi, everyone. I'm Becky
Yes.
Scott. I'm the Senior Manager of Community at Jump Cloud. And joining me is Alexa. She manages our meetups and social media. And Vit is joining us, and he is from our product team. He's going to have a great demo for us today. So we are looking forward to that. And we always have a little bit of a chit chat in the beginning and just kind of welcome everyone and get everyone settled in as people kind of trickle in. And then we talk a little bit about community and meetups and what recent product releases we have. And then we will jump into our demo and then on to our IT news. And we like to have some fun along the way. So chime in the chat. We always have really fun stuff going on in the chat. And we also stream to YouTube. So we try to read out some of the things in the chat so that as people rewatch this on YouTube, they will understand what we're laughing at so that they will get the context. But you can always rewatch this on Crowdcast so that you can get the context in the chat, or you can go to our YouTube channel and see it there as well. So that is the kind of the situation of what we have going on here. So back to the holiday stuff. Vit, did you get to take any time off?
Absolutely. So I, got almost a full week off. Certainly in de facto a couple of days off where I wasn't necessarily off, but things were a little slow. But
It's the best.
absolutely, it's a good time to recharge.
That's
Good,
great.
good. Yeah.
Becky, what about you?
I actually took 2 weeks off, believe it or not, for the first time in I don't know how long. I forced myself to do so, and it was great. Just hang around and did stuff, house projects and things like that, and it was really good. Hung out with my kids,
Awesome.
and yeah, we had a cold snap right before
Yeah.
Christmas, and so we just tried to hunker down and stay inside. And I realized there are areas of my house that are not well insulated at all. Living in the South, who knew? I guess they decide they don't need to insulate houses very well because it's not supposed to get cold here, and it did. It got down into the teens, I think. Alexa,
Yeah.
in
No,
some
it
places.
was cold.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it actually was real winter weather, and then
Yes.
the next week, we went back up into the 60s and 70s, so yeah, fun times. So, yeah, it was good. It was really good, but happy to be back at work and back at our first IT hour of
I know.
2023.
I
So
know. I was
exciting.
I was telling Becky I felt giddy in the green room. It's been a long time because I missed the last one of December, so it's been a while for me, but I'm super excited to be back and I missed everyone.
Yeah, we missed you too. I think we gave you a hard time,
Yeah.
as usual when you
I
weren't
I
here.
wouldn't expect anything less.
Mhm, absolutely. But when are you not giddy in the green room? You
That's
always come
true.
on laughing when we start.
This is true.
That's what we love
I'm
about
normally
you.
super chill, and then right before you're like, "Okay, we're going live," it just I can't keep
As
it
as
together.
soon as it hits the countdown, I should screen record and do like some outtakes of Alexa during the countdown. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. That'd be funny.
Yes.
All right, and with that, I'm gonna jump into the community update. It's been, well, I guess 3 weeks technically. This is a third week. There are several awesome scripts from Sean and Edon and Jurgen. We've got something about, let's see, leverage content caching for macOS update with patch management policies from Sean. Edon did an onboarding script report for each system the users has and if they are managed. And then Jurgen did a Winget comes with PowerShell module now release candidate. And I think there is at least one other one from Jurgen. They were busy during the holiday and wrote a bunch of great stuff. So go check those out. And Chris has a Happy New Year for MSPs post up. So make sure you check that out. And if you're an MSP, go say hi on that thread. And Alexa, what is new in meetups?
Yes. So we spent, pretty much all of December kind of finalizing plans, and it was super exciting to kind of see how this year was coming together. But yeah, super exciting to be in our second year of the Meetup program. Last year, we learned a lot, and we're super excited to get things going this year. So that said, we've got a lot planned, and I think the name of the game is activation. Like I said, we learned a lot about kind of what constitutes a successful cadence and format. So we're looking to apply that to the other groups in the network that weren't as active in 2022. So a lot to come there. And if all goes according to plan, we're looking to have well over double the amount of meetups that we had last year. So kind of ambitious, but we're super excited. I think we saw a lot of momentum and people are interested in getting together and kind of expanding their networks and talking tech with other folks who get it. So yeah, kind of all that said, if you're interested in getting involved, whether that means just attending a meetup or even helping to coordinate and facilitate in your city or area, please reach out. Because we're also looking to implement a chapter leaders program to get these meetups a little bit more automated and a little bit more independent. So if you're interested, please reach out. You can reach out to me individually. I'm in the Slack lounge, or you can send me an email. It's alexa.emerson@jumpcloud.com. Or you can always reach out to our community email address, which is community@jumpcloud.com. If you have any sort of feedback or input there. But yeah, a lot more to come. We are finalizing the schedule for Q1 here, so more announcements to come. But yeah, as always, make sure you're a part of our network because that is where all of it goes down.
Yeah, I was talking about meetups last night with a friend, and I was reminiscing when I worked for a university, and we used to get together after work and have beers at the pub on campus. And it was just a bunch of people who worked in different parts of IT across the campus. So we were all in different IT groups. One worked in security, one worked in library IT, I worked in student services IT, and we all just decided, hey, let's start having a meet at the pub and have a beer. And it was cool that we had an actual pub on campus.
Yeah.
And we would just get together after work once a week, whoever could make it, and we would just sit around and talk about whatever. And it really was that sort of meetup where we talk about what we were working on, or just talk about whatever was going on with work or maybe not work. And then it morphed into not only doing that, but one of the guys would have a barbecue every weekend at his house. Of course, this was in California, so the weather was nice, and he would have a barbecue, and then he started inviting people over to his house, and then it got to even be more of a tight knit group, and it was just really fun to have that really close knit group. And we're all still friends. We're all scattered now. One of them's in Texas, one of them's up in the Bay Area working for Google, someone else works for a university system, I think in Iowa, one of them's still at that university in California. I'm here in North Carolina, but we're all still friends and we keep in touch. And it's just really neat to see those bonds form. And I would love to see people be able to get together like that. It was, it was different in the 90s, I guess, but I would just like to see people be able to find friends like that and start to form these groups where they get to talk to each other. And it's not about Jump Cloud necessarily. It really isn't. And I know it's really easy to be skeptical when we talk about this, but um, we want you to find your group, your people, and find people who you have something in common with around what you do, so that you can talk through problems that you're working on and bounce things off of people. It's really helpful, especially when you work for a really small company. You don't always have someone to bounce things off of. And that's really what we're after. So we want to help you make those connections. And that's what we're trying to do, honestly and truly. So
Yep.
let us know how we can help. If you already know of a group, we've said this before, if you already know of a group that just needs a little bit of a push to grow a little bit, we are also open to helping sponsor that by, food or beverage, or um, getting a speaker to talk about a topic and sponsoring the speaker or something like that as well. So there you go.
Yes. Very well said.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And unfortunately, you're going to hear me talk some more because I'm going to jump into product releases. We have a new integration with Personio HRIS. I don't have something to link you to on that yet, but I should have something soon where you can read more on that. As we get more and more HR systems integrated, we will continue to let you know about those. We also now support Pop OS 22.04, and we have it's a very brief post on the community. It just says, hey, we now support it. But I think we will also have some more documentation around that too if you need it. And we also have browser patch management policy status reports. Last month, we shipped a new patch feature for browser patch policies, but then we also knew that we needed to have a report to go along with that feature. So usually during a compliance audit, admins are asked to provide evidence about the devices they manage. So being able to provide details about applications like Chrome browsers, including policy application, policy status, current version, etc., is usually key to that audit process. You need to show where you are in all of that. A report that has all the devices listed along with the policy deployed and the status for each of these policies is usually pretty helpful. So we created this ready-to-use report so that you don't have to go dig through all of the information to find out where every device is currently. So hopefully that will be super helpful. We've got more details and screenshots on the post in the community. Let us know what you think about that. Hopefully it is useful. And with that, we are going to hand it over to Vit. He has just a couple of brief slides, and then he is going to share. We are excited to see Cloud Insights.
Great. Thank you for that intro, Becky. Let me start sharing my screen here. So I'd like to spend most of this presentation doing the actual demo. And make this interactive. So please feel free to use the chat to ask any questions. But let me just first orient everyone on what is Cloud Insights and what you can do with it. So ultimately, Cloud Insights is your visibility service to show you what your users are doing in your AWS environment. And this builds on top of what we already provide in Directory Insights, which is a data service that shows you your user activity and admin activity across all the different services that Jump Cloud provides, be it applications, be it devices. Anybody logs into a laptop, authenticates into an application, all of that is logged in Directory Insights. What Directory Insights does not show, at least in case of AWS, is what happens once a user authenticates into AWS. Let's say if you use our connector, what are they doing in AWS after that? And this is where Cloud Insights picks up where Directory Insights leaves off. So just to quickly orient you, like how this works is we do integrate with your AWS environment. ingest some activity logs basically, and render that as a beautiful events feed in your Gem Cloud console. And the idea here is on how you could use this is, access policy. You may have some strong ideas and opinions and policies about how you want your users accessing your AWS environment, and this is a way to view that. Looking at suspicious activity, and we'll look at a couple of examples of that. And staying compliant, right? There's some standards like SOC 2 that mandate certain behaviors and permission postures that you'll be able to monitor by using this service. So let me pause here before I jump into the demo, but ultimately this is the gist. And so I'd like to get into kind of like the nitty gritty of it from here, but just want to pause before I just see if there's any questions. Great. Okay, let's dive right into it. So this is sort of like I already have something cooked up, a cooking show trick, but basically before this, I've already integrated my personal account, and we can skip the part on how you integrate with the, to how you add your first account when we have a nice little article here to walk you through every step. It's fairly simple, literally, 5 to 6 clicks maximum for you to walk through all of that. But once you've added an account, that account will show up in this screen to showing you, which accounts you've added. You can add multiple, but let's focus in on the one that I already have integrated. So what do you get here? Well, foundationally, this service is based on, if you're familiar with AWS activity logs on CloudTrail. And what we're showing you here is basically, the default columns answer the question of who did what in the cloud, in your AWS cloud, and optionally to what resource. So we show you the identity, which can be a number of different things, including users, including some services. And I'll show you on how to kind of clean this up or focus in on specific identity types. It shows you what the action was, what the actual user or another identity did, and to what resource. And you can add many more attributes that we support, but let me just focus on these kind of like default ones. So I think what will make this more concrete is walking through one use case that I had in mind, which is let's say I'm an admin and I want to know who is authenticated into my AWS cloud through something other than a Gem Cloud connector, right? So let's say you have a policy that says I want everyone to get into AWS only through a Gem Cloud SSO connector and in no other way, because I don't want to see a whole bunch of static credentials that users might take with them when they change projects or company. How would I be able to look at that? Well, this is one of the kind of values that we are very proud of in terms of, because you do not get this with native AWS services. We have let's go to this filter called SSO, and if our applications, we support actually 2 different connector types into AWS, an IAM type and SSO type. And this is what this is really showing is ability to filter for identities that authenticated through either one of these 2 connectors, and the lone dash means neither. So let's select the lone dash. And what that means is this will pick up identities that did not authenticate into your AWS through either one of the 2 connectors that Gem Cloud supports. So after I've made that selection, what we're seeing here is a few identities that don't really look like users, right? Looks like this is some kind of an EC2 instance. So let's say I wanted to clean that up, right? I just want to look at people, right? So we have this neat feature called hide non-person entity events. And this zooms in, and now that I've clicked that, we're only seeing folks that look like people now. So there's a handful of identities here, myself, some other users, and they're doing stuff, right? Let's see what, looks like there's somebody clicking around EC2 instances. There's other actions like, let's see. So it looks like mostly EC2 events, which is expected, right? One of the most popular services. Somebody's looking at their SSO configuration. Whether or not this activity is suspicious or not, the fact that somebody is able to get into your AWS account without a connector might be already worth a look and worth a kind of like saving this view and keeping an eye on these identities, and maybe you want to kick them out later, or whatever remediation path you choose. And now that I've made this kind of like this filtering configuration, I might want to come back to this view periodically and see, okay, do I have a new identity that's violating the specific policy? So you can, save this as a saved view, so you don't have to repeat this filter configuration in the future. And now you can easily navigate to this here to replicate that. So let me pause here again just to see if there's any questions. Great. I'm going to keep going then. Okay, let me walk through another use case. So I mentioned suspicious activities. So what does that look like? So let me clear this configuration, and that's okay because my saved view is still there to refer to later. What I would, and I've heard this from a number of CISOs that I've spoken with when I was scoping this product, something like if you see users creating new identities, new accounts in AWS, that could be a problem, right? Because that means you don't have a control of someone who is effectively expanding access, perimeter to your AWS environment. So how would we get to that? Well, let's bring in another filter, which is not populated by default, but we'll need for this exercise, called event source. So event source basically shows you which specific AWS service was used, not was used, but the action belongs to. So I'm going to select identity and access management, which is a service that basically any event that has anything to do with creating a user, deleting a user, changing a role, all these IAM resources that basically control access, would show up here. So I've selected IAM. So what does this give me? It gives me a whole bunch of stuff still. It's not really super zoomed in report yet. Get credential reports. So I don't know what this means, to be honest, nor am I interested, right? It looks like list policies. So this is somebody clicking on a list of policies and just looking at it, right? So maybe this is all, fairly benign stuff based on just what I'm after. What I'm really after is I want to see if anybody's creating stuff. So let me type in create. So let's pick create user and create role. So because these two particular actions effectively expand. If somebody creates a role and make it assumable by themselves or others, that they've effectively expanded access. If somebody creates a user, well, that's even worse. And let's take a look at who is doing this. So it looks like we have 4 identities that are creating users. So maybe that's a concern. The root here, that's probably okay, right? This is, in my case, this is a brand new account, and you needed to kind of like log in as a root first and create a couple of users before you never use that root account ever again. But that's another interesting kind of aspect, right? If you wanted to look at root activity, right, which is, should give any CISO a heart attack of seeing this in any AWS account that has long since been created. That's another thing you can do here. But yeah, so maybe, after looking at this, maybe it's time to have a conversation with these folks, or in the very least, revoke their permissions to be able to do this, so you don't see that in the future. Yeah, and like before, we can save this view, and we can call this something that makes sense to you and refer to it later. And now you're able to basically quickly navigate to this. Excuse me, and keep an eye on this type of activity.
So we do have a question. Is it possible to flag activity or export an authenticated report? Sean is thinking of how M365 and Google Workspace have legal hold options on data where it freezes the activity logs at that point for reporting. I could see where in an audit or, if you work for government, like a FOIA request, you would need to have like a snapshot of a particular time to
Mhm.
show what it looked at that existing point in time.
Absolutely. So we do have a time bar that basically allows you to zoom in on specific time range. So you can do that. As for exporting, we do support export in two different formats. Whether it's Excel or CSV in Excel or JSON, you're able to export to do an export of this.
Yeah, but for certain reporting or audits, you need to have something frozen that can't be edited. So if you export into JSON, maybe, but into CSV, that can be edited. So you need like a snapshot in time that can't be tampered with.
Gotcha. I'm not sure, so I'd have to get back to you on this one. The only proposition there I can think of is basically making your, exported file, write protected or edit protected. But if there's something more, kind of like a different security measure here that keeps the file from being tampered, we don't have that right now, but let me look into it and see. It would just, maybe this is a super easy feature we could add.
Sean has a follow-up. Alternatively, can email/ticket alerts be configured to trigger if a specific view gets a new record?
Great question. I think this is something that is a much broader comment to across Jump Cloud, in that having alerts or alerts engine based on a specific event. So we do not support that today, but we've certainly heard a number of requests asking for this. So it's absolutely on the roadmap to get this added in the near term.
All right, thank you. And yeah, Luke says plus 100 for automation on that. So yeah, that's definitely a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's not fun to peruse through this manually, especially if it's kind of a high volume of events that are passing your particular filter configuration. It's where we wanted to start to be able to kind of like get you to something that's usable. But absolutely, the next step from that is automation and triggering, and so that you can spend as little time in here as possible, but then still catch different events. Any other comments or questions? Great. And let me just close out by saying a few things. What I've demoed here is just the tip of the iceberg, right? We support filtering by just about any attribute of the event, whether you want to look at a specific AWS region, event category, identity type. I was talking about root. That's just one identity type. Configure. Look at your source IP. All of that is basically supported as as a filter, as a column if you want to bring it in, as a view here. So all of those things are supported. Just didn't want to get into some of the hairier use cases at this point. Great.
Yeah, I think just one other comment was alerts webhooks have been painfully missing for a long time.
Yep. No, this is great, and this is why I was so excited to do this, is because hearing feedback like that makes it a lot easier to get these features prioritized, and there's certainly a growing chorus of folks who are looking for this. So great to see more added to that.
Awesome.
Well, Becky, I'm going to stop sharing then and hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone for the great questions. Shout out to Sean. You had a lot of really great comments there. But if you have anything follow up later, let us know and we will be happy to ping Vit and get answers to your questions, or you can ask them in Slack or on the community. And with that, we are going to jump over to our next topic. Alexa had found a great CIO article about 10 IT resolutions for 2023. And the reason we thought we would talk about this is, a lot of times, well, the CIOs are kind of the managers over the IT org, and you have to learn how to speak their language and roll up your goals into theirs. When we first start out, we don't always know how to speak the language of the business, and we just kind of go do our own thing. But over time, you have to learn how to take your goals for your group and roll them up into what your manager, what your leadership is doing. So how are you tying your goals into that? And do you communicate your goals in a way that roll up into what management is doing? You have to make sure you're speaking to their needs and think about WIFT. Instead of WIFM, which is what's in it for me, think about WIFT, what's in it for them. And make sure that you're aligning with your leadership, because that helps show the value you add to the company. And when you can show the value you add to the company, you are less likely to be looked at as a cost center and more as a value add. Sometimes that doesn't always work. It really depends on your leadership. But the more you can speak to your value, then the better off your contributions will be looked at, let's say. So we're going to go through a few different resolutions and kind of talk through some of these that, well, some IT leaders have said that are important to them. One thing, I was talking with a CIO friend recently, and they said, beginning of the year, they're looking at their incident response plans. I'd love to know in the chat if any of you are currently working on a new one or reviewing your current one. I think they are reviewing their current one, going over it, making sure it's up to date and everything. That's always really important to make sure, you're up to date. Have you got everything you need there? What they are talking about doing, which I found really interesting, and I don't know how many people do this, is they are going to go through a simulation where they're going to take their incident response plan, they're going to update it, and then they're going to do a simulation and run through it and make sure it actually works. Like, we're going to set up as if we've had an incident, the whole 9 yards. Everyone who needs to be involved is going to be pulled in, and we're going to act like we have an incident, and we're going to run through our incident plan and make sure it works. And I don't think enough of us do that. I know it takes a lot of effort to do that, because you've literally got to pull resources away from normal day-to-day work. You've got to set up these scenarios. It could be a half day or even a full day to run this, but they are committed to actually doing this and make sure, is there anything that we've overlooked, and make sure that we really are ready for something like this. And they're also a government agency, so they're going to be doing some courses for other um, government agencies and do some cybersecurity training where they're going to run scenarios for other people and show them how to do this, like run some simulations and run these teams through them who have never done this before, so that they can learn how to manage incidents and how to approach them, and then how to document their response plans as well. So I thought that was really an interesting thing to be working on in the coming year. And I was wondering if any of you all have done that or are doing it, or plan to do it sometime soon. It kind of sounds overwhelming at first when you think about it, but I think the gains outweigh any of the kind of terror at trying it at first. And we've been talking about doing that with crisis response recently too, just making sure that everything is up to date on the community and social side and things like that. So I think it's an important thing to do. What did you think, Alexa, on what was your next one on that list?
Well, I don't know if this even came from the list, but I was talking to some internal folks just kind of about the idea of IT resolutions, and they kind of made an interesting point. They kind of related it to some kind of stereotypical resolutions that people just have. So, when you think about, a lot of people have a resolution of, getting in shape or losing weight. And so they were kind of relating that to, you think about trimming the fat. Do you guys have any resolutions when it comes to cutting costs from your IT budget? And so some ways to do that. Have you calculated your TCO recently? How is your 2023 budget looking? And things like that. So that was kind of funny to me. And then something else we talked about was, a lot of people also have a resolution of trying new things or trying new hobbies. And we kind of equated that to automation. That's something that people are moving towards, and we're always looking to try to make things easier and more efficient for ourselves. So that was something else that we talked about. And then selfishly, my favorite one was, a lot of people have a resolution to, meet new people or again, try new things. And we equated that to meetups. So selfishly, if you're looking to do that, we'd love to see you at a meetup this year.
Nice plug.
Thank you.
So trimming the fat is interesting because I think my initial reaction, and tell me in the chat if you agree with this, is it already feels like IT is so pared down and slim anyway. It's like there is no fat in IT. What are you talking about? We can't trim anymore. But maybe that's not true. But I would say with the current economic environment, people are being forced to do that anyway, right? They're being told, you don't have a choice. You are going to have to find a way to trim anyway, whether you like to or not. Look at Salesforce just this week. What was it? 10% of their workforce, I think it was, or was it more than that? No, I think it was 10%. And then another healthcare, like a technology firm that one of my friends works for, cut 25% of their team. So it's, people are cutting in all different ways. So yeah, you have to, so that leads to automation, figuring out ways to work with what you have. Shout out to Charles in our Raleigh meetups group, because I saw something he had written a while back that said, if I have to do things, I think more than twice, I'm going to look at a way to automate it. Like, how do I automate something if I'm going to have to do it more than twice? So that's one way to look at things. If you are doing something repetitive, is there a way to automate that so you don't have to do it manually all the time? And I think some of the things we're doing in the product, some of these reports and things like that, and insights, we're trying to do that to help make that a little easier. We've got a lot more on the way where we're trying to make the product better and make it more efficient to automate some things for you. But there's also PowerShell and scripts and other things that you could do to try and automate those tasks that are just, boring and repetitive, so that you can free up your time away from tasks and be more strategic and more value add, right? And then onto the meeting peers and things, then you're getting into that innovation piece as well. Getting to talk to other people and figure out like what are they doing that's cool and interesting, and problem solving together. There's an adage about the rubber duck where when you're developing, you tell your problem to a rubber duck because you're voicing it out loud. And as you do that, sometimes that will help you problem solve. And I think they're just voicing it out loud as you talk through it, it helps. But there's also something to be said about finding a peer and just bouncing ideas and things off of them, because they may come at it from a different perspective. They may have different experience or just different ideas that will help you approach something from a different angle and also help you problem solve. And I think that's where peer groups come into play a lot as well. So a couple of different angles from that innovation thing with using automation or artificial intelligence. ChatGPT has been, in making its rounds a lot. People have been talking a lot about that. I still haven't tried it yet. I've been thinking about it. Still haven't made the time for it. I was really trying to avoid anything that even looked like related to work at all during the holiday. Like I had to sit on my hands a couple of times because I'm really bad about that. I may be a workaholic. I may need to work on that. We had this discussion before, Alexa, about
We did.
workaholism. But I'm planning on looking at it because I keep hearing things about using something like that to not to completely replace what you're doing, but you can feed something in it and use it as a jumping off point. So you feed something into it, it spits out whatever you're looking at. Maybe it's a job description. And then that eliminates you starting from a blank page. And then you go in and you fill in the gaps and tweak it and make it your own. But it just kind of helps you, start from something. There are lots of debates about whether that is a good idea or not, whether it's cheating. But I'm also hearing that it does a really good job of accuracy as far as like giving you some starting bullet points and stuff. So I don't know if any of you all have tried it yet. I know we talked about it a little bit before, but it's gone kind of quiet in the chat. So I'm curious if anyone has used it or played around with it or anything. So let us know what you are thinking about whether that type of automation is worth it, or whether or not you'd rather do it on your own. Which kind of shortcuts do you like, and which ones are a little too much? What kind of shortcuts do you like, Alexa?
Oh, all of them. Oh, Rob.
Rob, do you really want to test my ability to liven up chat? You have been awfully quiet, Rob. Did you not get your coffee this morning? We're kind of wondering if you skipped the coffee. I know Stephen was making fun of my giant mug, but I mean, come on, it's Jack. How can you not like Jack?
It's a good one. No, I am a shortcut gal. My mantra is path of least resistance. Oh no, Rob.
All right, Stephen, here you go. just for you. Make it quick. I know they were creeping people out last time, so I won't show them very long. I'll just show the feet
Special
briefly.
treat for first IT hour of the year.
Yep. 2023 first feet. Foot. No, it was feet. So yeah, I think there are some shortcuts that are helpful for efficiency's sake. So sometimes they can. What I like is things that take the boring rote tasks off of my plate, so I can focus on the more value added stuff. Things where I need to think and I need to use my brain rather than the boring stuff where you're just like cutting and pasting or
Mhm.
running a report or something that doesn't need your brain as much. So Steven says, I have not used ChatGPT, but our COO is thinking about making a blog where ChatGPT writes all the blogs for him. Then he can monetize the blog. I have, heard that that idea from a lot of different people. Um, I think there's a debate from writers as to whether or not that is a viable way of doing things. Because I think from people who are writers, I'm a writer. Is that just we already have so much content out there? Is that thoughtful content, and is it useful? I mean, is it just going to spit out a bunch of junk, or is it going to make sense? Is it going to be helpful? Is it going to be useful? I don't have the answer to that. But if you use it as a starting point and then you add to it and tweak it and make it good and useful and helpful, then I think that might be really interesting. But if it's just to spit stuff out for search engines and it's just garbage and it just adds to the noise out on the web, is that really just because you can? Does it mean you should? I mean, I can understand monetizing the blog, but I know a lot of people do that or want to do that, but I struggle with that debate, Stephen, because is it really going to do anything or help anybody if it's but money? But will it over time? Will it make money if it's not decent content? I mean, Rob says 1,000 ChatGPT bots are given 1,000 word processors, and 1,000 years you will get the works of Shakespeare translated to German, Chinese, English. So translate to German, then to Chinese, and then back to English. That might be interesting what turns out. I just I don't know, over the course of time, there are already so many millions of pages on the web. Does that contribute to the noise? Would it actually make sense over time to monetize it? Because would it devalue over time if it's not good content? Although I'm hearing that Chat GPT actually does churn out some really relevant stuff so far, but will it get better over time, or will it get worse, or will we just get such a glut of stuff that it's going to make search less useful? It was the blurst of rhymes, Rob says. That's how it would turn out. Michael, you bring up an interesting point about great way for kids to do their homework, because as I was looking at headlines, I didn't put it in the headlines today, but there was a school that has already banned Chat GPT as a worry for that exact thing about kids and homework. I'll have to go back and see if I can find it, because it was, which one was it? One school had already done that, and I think others were considering it. So yeah, I mean, that's already a concern of schools. What are kids going to do with this? And it's going to make it harder for teachers, I think, to run things through through plagiarism
Yeah.
search too. I think that's going to make it a lot. Oh, New York City schools block it, fearing negative impact on learning. So that was on Ars Technica. If you want to go search that up, actually, I can just copy it, and I didn't put it in the thing, but I will put it in chat because it's going to make it a lot harder to look for plagiarism, isn't it? I mean, if you didn't write it yourself, but ChatGPT is spitting it out, how are you going to know? I've seen other debates on it before too, so that is going to be really interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out. Anything else on resolutions? I've got a few news headlines, not a ton, about 3 or 4. We can jump into those.
Yeah, I say go for it.
All right. Favorite part of the thing. Speaking of Ars Technica, there was an article about first LastPass, now Slack, and Circle CI. They're saying that the hacks go on and will likely worsen. So there have been some serious breaches hitting Slack and also software testing and delivery company Circle CI. Though giving the company's opaque wording, security issue, quote unquote, and security incident, you'd be forgiven for thinking these events were minor. The compromises, in Slack's case, the theft of employee token credentials, and for Circle CI, the possible exposure of all customer secrets at stores, come 2 weeks after password manager LastPass disclosed its own security failure, the theft of customers' password vaults containing sensitive data in both encrypted and clear text form. The most concerning of the 2 new breaches is the one hitting Circle CI. On Wednesday evening, the company reported a security incident that prompted it to advise customers to rotate all secrets they store on the service. The alert also informed customers that it had invalidated their project API tokens, an event requiring them to go through the hassle of replacing them. So what that boils down to is 1, ouch, and 2, be ever vigilant on your security and rotate your passwords and tokens and everything fairly frequently. It's just going to keep happening. We're doing what we can to help you with that, though. Next one up is kind of related to an old headline, but I thought it was interesting. Meta is going to pay $725 million to settle the Cambridge Analytica lawsuit. Now, this comes from back in 2018, but they are finally paying to settle the class action lawsuit from that far back. If you remember, there was a problem with Cambridge Analytica getting access to Facebook user data via an app developed by a third party. Only around 270,000 Facebook account holders used the This Is Your Digital Life app, but the app's permissions allowed it to access data on their friends. And the end result was a data set covering 87 million users that the developer then passed on to Cambridge Analytica. And that was against Facebook's terms of service. And they used that data set to basically grab stuff for political purposes. So that is finally getting resolved, but because of the large number of people that were affected, as usual, when it comes to a class action suit, the lawyers will get most of it, and the people in the suit will get a little bit. They might get a few dollars, but at least that's finally getting settled. Okay. This is really interesting and highly, highly relevant to people in the technology sector. The FTC has a proposal out that could kill non-compete clauses. Now, if you've ever worked for a technology company of any size, you may have had to sign a non-compete clause. The FTC announced a proposal for a new rule that could effectively kill non-compete clauses. The commission argues that banning non-compete clauses could result in a $300 billion total increase in American wages. This rule would make it illegal for employers to attempt to enter into, or maintain a non-compete with an employee. It would also forbid employers to represent to a worker under certain circumstances that the worker is subject to a non-compete. By ending this practice, the FTC's proposed rule would promote greater dynamism, innovation, and healthy competition. The director of the Office of Policy Planning says that research shows that non-competes restrict workers' mobility and suppress workers' wages, even those not subject to non-competes or non-competes that are unenforceable under state law. I thought that was really interesting, and wondered if any of y'all have worked for companies that have non-competes, and did that affect you in any way? I have in the past. I've worked for companies that had non-competes, and it did affect me, and it didn't, because it can limit who you apply for if you are leaving that job. So I thought that was really interesting that the FTC is going after that, and I haven't it's brand new, so it just came out. So I will be interested to see how I don't know, Silicon Valley reacts to it, because that's where a lot of those non-competes come from. What do you think, Alexa?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's usually tech that's affected by that. I definitely had one with my last job. I wasn't affected by it, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a real thing that will affect a lot of people.
Yeah, I would say definitely developers, engineers, IT in certain respects, a lot more than, us marketing folks. But
Yeah.
it depends. It really depends on what sort of IP you have access to. So interesting stuff. And the last one, that'll be perfect timing. Did anyone here get affected by all the Southwest Airlines stuff last week? Did anyone get stuck?
Fortunately, I was not affected.
I stayed home and I wasn't either, but I was curious if anyone was traveling last week and got affected by that, because it was this is the perfect example of not investing in infrastructure and deciding to push off decisions, upgrades, investing in IT, and paying the price for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if all of y'all have seen the thing that went kind of viral, where it was supposedly from someone from Southwest who kind of had an inside track on everything that kind of led up to this. It was a big long post about how once the accountants got in control, they put off these changes that needed to happen, and the investment that needed to happen in infrastructure, again looking at it as a cost center instead of a vital integral part of the company. And all of these delays in making changes is what caused these issues down the road. When you don't update your software and you don't update all the infrastructure that goes behind it, catastrophic consequences, right? I mean, that was a huge mess. I had friends that did, in different cities, they got affected by it. Their flights were canceled, and they put pictures up of, like in San Diego, Southwest has pretty much all of one terminal, and they sent pictures of just the baggage claim just all just suitcases. Like there was no room for people. It was just
Mhm.
all baggage from all the canceled flights, and all the other airlines were traveling. I mean, they had a few cancellations and they were, once the weather cleared, they were back up, and Southwest was just devastated.
Yeah. Not a good situation. Kelly in the chat said, partly because of Southwest, she had a friend whose parents bought a new car just because their flight got canceled so that they could drive to their destination. And I feel like I read a lot of stories like that with canceled flights, people just driving,
Oh,
hours and
yeah.
hours just to get, where they were going. But
Yeah, you're right. You remind
yeah,
me of a friend that had to drive, a local friend who had to drive 21 hours to get back here because they
that's
couldn't.
insane.
Yeah, and they still got back before any of the flights had
Yeah,
been resolved.
yeah,
It just what looked like was just gonna be, some canceled flights, and then, oh, they'll get back online, right? Just went longer and longer and longer, and, I really hope they learn from this, and I hope other companies do too. I mean, there's gonna be tons of case studies written about this if they get access to the right people and really get to look at what went
what
wrong,
happened?
and
Yeah,
not just, I mean, even the response to it, right? Like
yeah,
the phone lines being
I
unable to be
know.
accessed, and then not being able to get their refunds and all of that. It was just a total cluster.
Yeah, I feel for the folks of Southwest who are answering, those calls now. But yeah, you're right.
Can you imagine being on the social team for that?
No.
I wouldn't
Well,
want to
did you
be.
see they decided in the middle of everything to like update their like Facebook cover photo or something, and people were like, "Why did you decide to do this right now?"
No, I missed that.
Oh, anyway.
So, Kelly, 2 days each way was still easier than trying to get a flight. Oh, yeah, and the Pacific Northwest weather froze everything solid right before Travelgeddon. Portland was just thawing out, and flight schedules started recovering when Southwest collapsed, so it was a mess to get in and out of here for, like, 2 weeks. Yeah, I think I saw some other people, and then I think Reno had this massive snowstorm too, and I think that was right around, yeah, that was right as a friend was trying to head back to Reno. They went to San Diego and then tried to get back to Reno with their kid and just couldn't. I think they wound up driving as well because they just couldn't, get where they needed to go, and then right after they got back, they had a massive, massive snowstorm, like feet of snow. So it's just been
Crazy.
travel industry is not doing so great right now.
No.
All right. Well, I think that is it. Thank you all for joining us for the first one of the year. We are glad to be back and glad to have you with us. We've got lots of great stuff planned for the rest of the month. We've got a great surprise for next week. We're gonna make sure we've got everything in place before we reveal that surprise. We make sure we get all of our ducks in a row so we don't have to retract. But we think we've got something really great going on next week, and the rest of the month too. And so we're getting some good stuff going for you. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we are looking forward to seeing you again next week. And
All
Vit,
right.
thanks for joining us, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye. Keep flicking this.